and I was supposed to race in Imola, Italy, and that's where I met Gabriele's dad, his father, obviously the founder of Alpinestars. So for me, I've lived through a lot of generation of what has happened with the company. Before only boots, now as you know, leather suits and race suits, karting suits, motocross, cycling, boots, shoes, everything. Are you Italian or?
Yes.
Okay. So, if I speak slow, you understand?
No, it's great.
Perfect. Sorry. I speak 5 languages: Australian, English, Irish, American. And Malaysian. So, but you've been enjoying this year so far, 2017 in MotoGP.
Yes.
Crazy year, huh? It's, you know, for the racers, it's like this. It's really tough. But for us fans, it's fantastic. I think one of the biggest problems is, like you people sitting at this table, if you start to know each other, you understand how you eat and how you do things, but every weekend, the tables change, and you're not too sure who you're racing against. So, you know, last week in Phillip Island, there were 73 or 75 passes between the top 7 in the race. Zarco did 27 of those passes.
Amazing.
For me, Zarco was, here's Zarco. Zarco was just going around the circle. You know, if you're Valentino or anybody, you keep on seeing the same guy going by, you know, in circles. But what fantastic sport. I mean, he's a rookie. We've had some great battles. We've seen Petrucci up front. We've seen Cal up front. We've seen Cal on the ground a lot this year as well. We'll ask a little bit about that when he comes in. I want you to think of questions to ask Cal, because when I'm finished with him, I want you to ask him something. Ask him if he has a dog. Yeah, I know he doesn't, but you can ask. I know that he's a very good family man. You know, he has a little girl. Lucy is his daughter, his wife, and Willow is his daughter. I think Willow now is 1 year, 11 months or something like this. So, as you know, for those of us who have children, it's something very special, as you can imagine. So,
I thought he would be very personal. No?
You know what? Yeah, it's up to you. Listen, ask him. The thing is, I will talk to Cal about everything, about this year, about the past, about what's going to happen in the future. You know, he's an HRC rider, Honda Racing Corporation rider now. So he does testing with Mark and Danny for Honda. As you know, this may or may not know, this year, each rider only gets 5 days of testing outside of the official tests. So if there's an official test in Jerez, Barcelona, Mugello, those don't count. But if you want to go testing, Honda wants to go testing, and each rider gets 5 days. So what's been positive is, for Honda, they take Cal. So Cal will go to Jerez and test. So he can do some specifics for Jerez, for example. And then when Danny and Mark get there, they already have some kind of idea, and they haven't used any days for Mark or Danny. And then maybe they might go someplace else, or the 3 of them together. Even I know that Yamaha is thinking of doing this with Zarco, because the same, if you can develop a bike quick enough. But I think the 2 blue guys, Vinales and Valentino, are a little bit nervous about giving Zarco the best body, because they might be going, please, slow down. I mean, today you saw he was fast. He was very, very fast, and very fun to watch. So a little bit about MotoGP. You know, the motorcycle is 4-cylinder maximum now. Before we had 5-cylinder Hondas and things, but 4-cylinder. The weight of the bike is 160 kilo. I think 2002 and 2003, the first years, I think we were at least 20 kilos lighter, but they keep on adding weight. Last night, I had to do an interview with Pedrosa. Danny weighs 51 kilo.
Wow.
I bet you these boys, you probably weigh 49 or 48. But Danny is not much taller than the one in the blue. You. And how much you weigh? ¿Cuánto kili?
Like 41.
Yeah, so I asked Danny, when he rode 125, he weighed 44 kilo. When he was 250, 48 kilo. I said, wow, you must have been fat. Huh? And, now, MotoGP, because 250 was only 100 kilo, the bike. And now he has to push 160 kilo at 340 kilometers per hour. And I promise you, he's this big and 51 kilo. It's incredible what to do. And I think what most people don't realize is that we have leverage when we're tall. Yes, it's hard to tuck in and these things, but there are disadvantages of being too small. One of those disadvantages is you see in MotoGP, even Marquez, who's my height, he really can get off the side of the bike. And Danny struggles to do that. If you look, he really is trying to get his arm and his elbows down, but because he's so small, and your head is roughly 7 kilo. So if you imagine taking 7 kilo, Rossi's head, Danny's head, or Mark's head and Danny's head, to move the bike from left to right, it's very difficult when you're this small. So these are quite an unusual things. So again, 4-cylinder, Honda is V4, Ducati V4, Suzuki, inline 4, Yamaha, Aprilia V4. Performance, we think the horsepower of Ducati is nearly in full capacity, 285, maybe 290 horsepower. But it depends on how much fuel they want to use. You know, they have a switch that they can use to cut the fuel. But the performance level of these bikes are a perfect start. 0 to 100 kilometers per hour is 2.1 seconds. So tomorrow when you see somebody make this start, compared to 2.1 and 2.2 is from me to the boys there in 1/10. So you can imagine, and what you try to do is get the clutch out as soon as possible so that the system can take over. So 0 100, 2.1, 0 200, 6 seconds, 0 300, 11 seconds, and here 340 kilometers per hour, but Mugello 349, 350 kilometers per hour. So again, can you imagine someone your size riding this type of bike to maneuver it around? We have Petrucci, who's quite funny, but also is very thick. He's a big boy. Also, Scott Redding is quite big. Lawrence Baz is quite big. But the funny one is Petrucci. In the press conference, somebody wrote in on social media and said, what is the biggest change you had to do for MotoGP? And for him, is not eat, because he knows he's heavy. He's 85 kilo with his helmet and everything, so that's 30 kilo more. You take 30 kilo and run and stop, run and stop. That's what his bike's doing. So the fuel level goes down quicker, so they have to cut horsepower. So it's a disadvantage. But at the same time, when we're on a track that takes a lot of physical effort and power, he has the availability to be able to do this, where other riders might not. But it's quite funny to listen to them talk. He says, I know it doesn't look like I've been starving, but believe me, I don't eat so much. It's so nice, so nice to hear. Do you have any questions for me? Look at you, you guys all say nothing. Any questions? So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you were very involved in MotoGP a few years back.
I still am very involved. So I started racing in 1979 in the World Championship when I was 19. 1980, 81, 82, 83, I raced for Suzuki Factory. 80, 81, second in the World Championship. Kenny Roberts in 80, Lucanelli. Then I went to Honda in 83 and 84, and I finished second. And I rode the 3-cylinder and 6th in the championship in 84. 84, 85, 86 and 87 for Yamaha. I finished third and second again, which is already 30 years ago. My last victory is 30 years ago in Misano. And my last podium was in 1988 for Gagila in Budapest. And the gift was a Testarossa Ferrari.
Oh, yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Now they give protons.
If you don't mind another question, because
Yes.
I watched you in those days racing against like Rainy, the likes of
Yeah, Rainy, France, doing.
Yeah. How was it like back then? If you were young as back then, now racing against the current crop, how would it be like?
So, these questions are always asked. The era.
Yeah.
What era was the best? I think all of the eras, because if you were old enough to watch in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, you had fantastic names, fantastic races, even in 125, 250. For me, 500, the two-stroke, was something extremely special. But even today's machine, you see this year has been much more close, and that's because regulation is making it this direction, single ECU, the spec of how things are, and it's making it that way. The biggest downfall I think that we had in the old days was machinery. The bikes broke. I mean, we had two-stroke, so you had seizures, you had things like this. For example, in 1980, I was leading the championship, and in Misano my bike broke, and also in. No, you're late. That's okay. I didn't fill it in.
Hi, how is everyone?
This is Cal Crutchlow, ladies and gentlemen. That's my son over there, Dakota.
Where are you all from?
Those are Italians
Malaysia.
and Malaysian.
Oh,
The Indian got sick.
I speak Italian, but not Malaysian. Sorry.
Anyway, how we doing? I know you were downstairs working. You should be warmed up, for questions.
I'm all warmed up for questions, so if anybody has one at any point, please feel free to ask. We've just been down and doing a Castrol event downstairs. Obviously, Castrol is our sponsor this weekend. We're very fortunate to have a great leather company in Alpinestars. We change our sponsor throughout the year, so we will have Castrol at one race, GB at another race, and Rizoma at another. But yeah, I thought the bike looked very good today, and especially the leathers as well. So yeah, it's good to be here. It's good to see you guys, and we don't stop working, as you know, and tomorrow's going to be a big race for everyone, I think.
So I kind of been chatting with them about how great this season's been and how difficult it is as a racer. For us, it's like friggin', we can't wait till the next one comes because you have no idea what the podium, top 5, top 10. Like I was saying, these people sitting at this table, if they sit there every week, they get to understand each other. But you guys have no idea who you're going to be racing with tomorrow because it'd be coming from anywhere, right?
Yeah, and that makes it difficult for us. As you said, Randy, it makes it great for everyone else. We like to go into a race knowing what's going to happen, but at the moment we have no idea. Last year was a little bit the same, and this year's even worse. I think you can easily win one race, and you can be 12th at the next. Look at Danny Pedrosa last week. He finished 12th. He's now on pole position at the Malaysian Grand Prix.
We're going wide.
So,
We're going wide. So we say why. What do you say?
Why? It's difficult.
So you are like us then, huh? You're not Somalian.
It is difficult to go into a race weekend not knowing the outcome. Even though you might have fantastic form, you can easily make a mistake in this championship. It's so close with how fast the riders are. As I said, you can be first or you can be 12th in two weekends. Part of it is good because you can get a really good result from it, but part of it's bad because you can be 20 quite easily. So, but we're here providing entertainment.
Yeah.
That's
Sure.
It's definitely been entertaining.
You know, sure, it's a business, and it's business for all the manufacturers, for everybody. You know, even the riders. We treat it as business. We love it, but it's an entertainment business. And I think this year MotoGP fans have got the best spectacle in the world. There's no doubt about it. And you know, we love what we do. We're very privileged to be able to race motorcycles around the world. But it doesn't make us any different for anyone else. Just because we can race motorcycles fast, I've always stayed along the same lines. I probably couldn't do anybody's job in here, but I can race a motorcycle fast. It doesn't make me any different. And I can't make leathers, that's sure. I can test leathers.
How long have you been in MotoGP now? When did you start with Tech 3? About 6 years ago now? 7 years.
So my 7th season in MotoGP.
Okay.
I had some great years at Yamaha. I had a year at Ducati and now with Honda.
Right.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to ride different bikes. Honestly, it's a great thing to be able to have tried the different bikes throughout the thing. I know their positives and negatives because that's the DNA of the bike.
Right.
Doesn't make you go any faster or be able to beat them, but you understand a little bit more.
I also explained that you're now an HRC rider, and what Honda did to bring you on board was, and explained that you guys only get 5 days of testing per year, so you kind of get rotated around, and there's things that you're able to test, put to its tested, and you'd say yes or no to give that to Mark and or Danny or come back to yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Your work with them.
Yeah, obviously I've been very fortunate I had a great year last year. I've had quite a good year this year. We've had our ups and downs, as many riders this year. But yeah, I discussed and negotiated a deal with HRC Direct for the next 2 years, which is great for me, great for my team because it gives them another 2 years with me. And we do a lot of the testing. We already did a lot of the testing with the Honda parts anyway. We were in a great fortunate position to be given a lot of parts as well. Sometimes they were good, sometimes they were bad, but that's the whole part of it. I've been, over the years, really been able to assess things quite fast. I might not always be as fast as the riders, but I can understand a lot of situations and a lot of things quite easily and quite well. So I can say quite immediately if something's good or bad. And yeah, and that's how the whole HRC thing came together. I was getting good results earlier in the year when we were discussing things, and sometimes they can work the parts, sometimes they don't. But we work really well together in Honda with the riders. With Mark and Danny. Mark's a very special rider. Danny's a completely different rider, and I'm sort of in the middle where they need to be because there's many riders that are more like me than any of them too. It's a difficult situation to explain, but I'm more of a normal rider where they are so different. So having someone in the middle is good for them as well.
Obviously that drops down into Mark VDS team for Rabat and or Jack Miller, obviously, who's doing really well this particular weekend and last weekend.
Yeah, we never stop working. We never stop working together. There's never any in-house fighting as such. We always try and go in the same direction because it speeds up the development of the bike. It speeds up the process for everybody to go faster. And that's not always the case in other manufacturers.
How hard has it been this last 2 years? Obviously, Michelin being involved, this is their second year. Them developing along with the championship, trying to make a tire for all the different brands of motorcycles. Got to be tough, all the different riding styles. But it seems like sometimes you get to a racetrack where it just clicks. And other places you just go, man, what happened to my tire? And even though they're round and black, it's not always that way, is it?
I wish it was every week a lot easier than what it is, but this is.
You have your choices. You have your choices, and you got to stick with those.
But they are picked, they are picked randomly.
Right.
So we can't really argue with that. It's just you do get good and bad tires. It's as simple as that. You get good and bad meals when you go out to a restaurant. It's over the year you're going to have some up and down things. It's just, and what works for one manufacturer might not work for the other at that race circuit. like this weekend, for example, Danny in the last race, he said he couldn't keep the tyre, or he had struggled with the tyre. This race, nobody else can use the hard tyre, he's fastest on it by far. You know, which is completely opposite to what it is. It's just the way it works. You know, sometimes it might benefit me, sometimes it might benefit someone else, or Ducati or Yamaha. You know, it's. But we will try and give the best information. You know, because there's 24 riders on the grid, which means 24 different styles. There's the different manufacturers. The team bosses want something different to the riders. So Michelin are trying to make everyone happy, and that's not easy at all. I can tell you.
No chance. All right, let's talk about this weekend. I mean, we can talk about last weekend, because last weekend we talked. Was it 73 or 75 passes?
78.
There you go. Yeah, I knew there was a 3 in there. It was 75 plus 3. 78, and you had a good seat. You were in 7th, 8th, 6th, 5, 6th, 8th, 3rd, 4th, back. Tell us what you were recording in your brain and what you were seeing out there. I mean,
yeah, it was a great race. There's no doubt about it. It was a great race for us. It's difficult when you're in that situation actually, because even though you're battling, even though you might be sat back, you might be leading the race, you don't know what the hell's going to go on. You don't know if somebody's going to go down, you're going to be first of one lap, you're going to be sixth the next. And the unknown for a motorcycle racer is not very nice. But for the fans, it's fantastic. So, yeah, I sat back. Honestly, I knew I couldn't go clear like I did last year in Australia, because I started badly in my qualifying position. Then I made my way up, and I thought, I'll just sit here and try and pass a few guys here and there when I can, or get past as well, which is the inevitable. But I honestly thought I was going to get a better result than what I got, simply because everybody was smashing into each other. So I stayed back. And I thought,
You guys do this.
Go after you. Who's that?
So I wanted to sit quite close to Iannone and quite close to Zarco.
Are you crazy?
Because I
Number 29?
because I thought, at the time, I thought it's perfect, because if you sit near them, whoever they're going to hit in front of them, both of them are around, and then I get past them like a snooker shot. It was quite calculated. Anyway, so yeah, it was a good race.
Okay. The last thing about Phillip Island, for me, is the intensity for Honda corner. That corner, the hairpin, the one after turn 3 of the fast. I mean, tell me what you're thinking. Every lap, you know that's where the intensity is going to be, or Lucky Heights coming down that hill. What are you guys trying to really think when you're going into there? Again, you're backing out, or you're trying to dive underneath somebody, but as you said, the traffic there can easily close the door or be open.
We know historically over the years that the right hand side of the tyre gets freezing cold. With the wind coming off the sea, with there being a lot of left hand corners, the right hand corners are not really right hand corners. That they are tight hairpins with their first gear, except for turn 1. It's difficult because you go down the hill and we have the asymmetric tyre, which means it's harder on one side than the other side. But in the centre, there is a joint somewhere. If you get that joint wrong and you've got too much brake pressure on, you're going down. This is something like Dobby did in practice.
And
You think that every lap. It's the strangest feeling, because you can be leading the race, you can be 8th, and when you're 8th, you're thinking, don't take everyone out. Do not crash at the back, because you're going to take everyone out. If you're leading, you think, you don't really need to push you need to cover your line. But covering your line means you've got to brake straighter back on that groove that might not be the best part. Yes, them two corners are really difficult corners, but it's where the fighting happens, because one guy might have bigger balls than the other. At the time,
I don't know what he's talking about. Shit, I already lost my train of thought here. Tomorrow, 10. You're starting 10th. You should have been starting a lot farther up.
Yeah.
I know that, you know that, we know that. You had personal best through T1, red on T2. You didn't make it through T3. Can you tell us what happened?
I made it about 10 meters into C3. Yeah, you know, we made a choice to go with the hard front tyre, the hardest option front tyre in the qualifying session, as did Mark. Mark crashed and I crashed. It's just that he crashed earlier in the session than what I did. They're very good for braking, you know, and the Honda, we always take advantage of that braking zone, but they're poor for turning, you know, and where I crashed 7 and 8, it was just where you're turning back.
Today was 54 or 55 degree track temperature.
Track, and yeah, I ran out of time.
In terms of, no you didn't. In terms of race pace, and are you going to be using the hard tire? I mean, obviously it's going to depend on.
You know, I think we will have to, because what happens characteristically with a mixture of tyres is when you're in a group, the tyre expands because it's getting hot. It's not getting any fresh air on that tyre. And for Honda, normally the harder front tyre is better for us in the race. Maybe not better in the practices so much, but in the race I think that's what we use.
You feel good for race pace?
Yes. In the dry, yeah. In the rain, at the moment the Honda riders are not in a great shape. Only Mark is riding incredibly in the rain. All the rest of us, me, Jack, Danny, who have all won races in the rain in the last 3 years, are really struggling.
And it's crazy because Yamaha's already struggled in the rain in a few racetracks.
And
now it's you guys, and Petrucci's can't ride in the freaking dry. He's in the back. And as I said, it's crazy.
So we have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow.
That's good. We're back to square one. Can you do some autographs for us?
Yeah, of course.
So while he's autographing, if anybody wants to ask a question, he can do two things at once. I've seen him.
Not very well.
I've got a question. Cal has one get off on the bike, but the thing that some people ask is that are you professional riders ever get scared of crashing?
You don't get scared of it, but it plays on your mind. You know, it's never nice to crash a motorcycle, but you know, people's limits are different to others. You know, look at Mark today; his limit is completely different to everyone else's. It's just the way it is. But if you got scared of crashing, you'd never come back.
I think one of those other things is when you don't know what happened in the crash, why the thing happened, it snapped on you or something like that, and until you look at data and/or video, sometimes riders. But once you know, you can live with this. And most of the time, you can live with that. Obviously, injury or something like that makes it that much more difficult.
Thank you.
Carl, do you ride a motorcycle often? I mean, when it's not racing? On the street?
As you all probably do, I would have to say yes, but
Yes.
the truth is no.
Really?
I don't ride, honestly. When I go home, I hate to ride a motorcycle. Because
I would think
we
so
just
too.
want to go fast, you know, and you cannot go as fast as you want in the road. And if I went on the road, I would just go at full speed all the time, which is,
So do you?
and they'd probably have me in jail. Yeah, you know, and I enjoy to ride every now and again with some friends. If I do a feature, I did a motorcycle news feature last week. You know, and it's good fun. But I enjoy to ride on the track. So then I don't really ride on the road.
You're not done yet, right?
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. When you look at the younger riders in Moto 2 or 3, who do you think will be like the next superstar or like good rider as they go up?
Honestly, absolutely honestly, none of them. If you are comparing a superstar to your Italian, you're comparing a superstar to Valentino or
even just
Mark or someone like that.
Yeah.
They are not in the same league in the moment.
But like in the future.
But I have to look at Moto 2 now and Moto 3, and I don't think there are any riders like there are in MotoGP now. I really love to watch the racing because it is fantastic, the Moto 3 and the Moto 2. but I don't see a superstar coming along like we have now. But hopefully that will change, and it can change like that. You know, if one kid just suddenly 1 year or one race has a fantastic race, it can change the mindset for him to be you know, the best rider in the world. It's so, but I don't see anybody coming up that I think is going to be the 10 times champion. You know, I see some guys that are very, very good, like Morbidelli, like Lutti, but Lutti is 28 years old. You know, but I like some of the Italian Moto3 kids. I like.
What about Mir? What do you think of Mir?
Yeah, but I also think when he makes that jump, I think it's going to be a difficult jump. You know, he may have dominated in one class. I also look at. Do you know the rider Danny Kent? Yeah, he won the Moto3 title 2 years ago, and he dominated it the whole year, and he's now sat at home. You know, so it can be like that. You are one way or the other. You know, and I really hope there is some really good kids coming up. Maybe you.
Nice.
Yeah, I have a question. Actually, for both of you, there's probably about 5 decades worth of riding experience between the both of you, maybe more. How has leathers developed? I mean, how has it changed? This, of course, a question for Alpinestars. How has it changed?
Well, for me, long before he was around, you know, the leathers were a lot thicker. Believe it or not, we didn't have very much protection at all. It was basically a piece of foam and then another layer of leather on the top. You know, I have leathers from the 70s. It's amazing how we made it through. I mean, I have a few burn marks still, but gloves that were another part were much more like a gardening glove, very, very soft. And if you even look at our helmets now versus what a Bell helmet was when I first started, I've been with the ride for 30 years, and the amount of changes that we've come through, the comfortability is the most important. One of the things at Alpinestars, I know they worked with these riders and us when they first got into leathers, you know, making it an active suit, finding out where temperatures were on the body, how they could keep the body cool, are so important for an athlete. And you know, but now these guys are getting the fruit of all these kind of testing. But the development continues to go because these guys come up with ideas, along with obviously the engineers that are a part of Alpinestars.
Yeah, well, I've been privileged to be with Alpinestars now for 5 years. I think I'm in my 5th season with Alpinestars, and yeah, we're trying to develop for the road. It's as simple as that. You know, what the input we give, sure, we might be fussy, we may ask for different things all the time, and we're very fortunate that we can be able to have that service. But in the end, that's what it's all about. It's all about developing for a safer environment to be on the road. We've put a lot of input into the airbag suit, into, you know, the breathability of the suit, you know, where the elbows, you know, the pad is placed, and you know, Alpinestars cover a lot of classes, so they get a lot of information to be able to put on the road. And, I've seen Alpinestars developing just in that years, you know, in the years that I've been there, and it never stops. You know, they never stop working. And if we come up with a new idea, or if it's Yozo or Danny, you know, it's available to all. So it's it works very, very well.
Right.
I have to ask one last question. I'm sorry. As you know, next year airbag suit mandatory for all classes. Maybe you can give a bit of idea about this.
What is?
Airbags.
Airbags. Yeah, mandatory.
Well, Cal's a part of the safety commission every Thursday, Friday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
We I think it's a great idea. You know, touch wood. I've seen a massive reduction in collarbone breaks. You know, since in all classes. You know, since the riders have used airbags, and you know, we can set the parameters a lot different. We can do different things to different other riders, and I think it's very, very good that, you know, we can do stuff like that, because we are testing, as I said, for the road, essentially. we have the grey suit now that is, you know, doing the shoulders, the top of the arms here, and the top of the legs, and yeah, it's saved my ass a lot of times, for sure.
So the last question, just from the little boy. Go ahead.
When you were little, did you ever think you'd be like where you one day? When you were little, right? Did you ever think you'd be like this good in MotoGP?
It's a strange question because I don't think I'm any different to anyone else. You know, honestly, I think because I can race a motorcycle fast, it doesn't make me any different to you or to your family or anything like that. I didn't want to be, you know, in MotoGP when I was growing up. I wanted to play football, soccer. But once I started to race a motorcycle, I started to love to race a motorcycle. Then I started to do very well in British Championship, and when I was in British Championship, I could have gone two ways because I liked to go to the party. At that point, you know, I was partying with my friends, but I loved racing motorcycles, and at that time I took a decision that it was going to be that I would go to MotoGP. And it was all or nothing to get there, and I went 5 years in a row. I jumped championship and I ended up in MotoGP. So it was more later that I took the decision that I thought I was going to be a MotoGP, and I managed to do it. But as I said, it doesn't make me any different to anyone else. It just means I'm in a very privileged position to travel around the world doing what I love.
All right, we're going to take a picture with Kyle.